In order to connect ideas in your writing, you will generally need to use transitional words and phrases. Transitional words or phrases sort of act as signposts. They tell the reader that you're changing direction, or that you're calling attention to part of the text. First, here's an example of a couple sentences with no transition. I appreciate how the public transit in this city is always on time. The monthly transit pass is quite expensive. If a reader were reading this, they'd probably be kinda confused. What's the relation between the two sentences? Or are they just random statements? What was the writer trying to express? Now let's add a transition and see if things get more clear. I appreciate how the public transit in this city is always on time. However, the monthly transit pass is quite expensive. Do you see how that makes more sense now? Without a transition, the connection between the two sentences was pretty unclear, but it's much more logical now. The first sentence is quite positive about transit. The second sentence is more negative, and I signal this shift in idea by using a transition. However is a transitional word, but I could also use a transitional phrase here just as easily. How about, that being said, the monthly transit pass is quite expensive. That works just as well. Whether you use a single word or a phrase, the important thing is to use some sort of transition in order to more clearly connect your ideas for the reader. And the two terms we just discussed certainly aren't the only transitions I could use in this case. Yet, on the other hand, or even unfortunately, could also work. There are plenty of transitions to pick from. Of course, you don't need to use transitions between every single sentence. But whenever you'd like to express a shift in ideas between sentences, that's when you should use transitions. Now let's look at some transitions in a couple sample responses. First, here's an example from Task 1. Your local park is well used for picnics, parties, dog walking, and sport events. There are signs that tell people not to throw garbage on the ground, but people still do this. As a result, the park is full of garbage. Write an email to the city administration in about 150 to 200 words. Your email should do the following things: complain about the garbage, explain why a clean park is important, suggest what city officials should do to fix the problem. Okay, we're just going to look at a few sentences from a response to this task. Here's a version without transitions. To help solve this problem, I have 3 suggestions. I suggest that you put more rubbish bins around the park so people don't have to walk as far to put rubbish in them. You should increase the number of staff members who collect the rubbish. Without anything connecting the ideas between sentences, this looks a bit disjointed. What would it look like if transitions were used? Which ones might you use? Here's a hint about where the transitions would go. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. So, what would you have suggested? How about firstly or secondly? Since this part of the response was a list of suggestions, transitions like this work well to indicate that each sentence is a separate item in the list. Let's look at an example from Task 2 now. The city wants to lower monthly bus passes from $80 to $50 for adults. The city will make extra money for transit services by charging more for parking rates downtown. The city is asking your opinion of the change. Choose the option that you prefer. Explain the reasons for your choice. Why do you prefer your choice? Write about 150 to 200 words. Option A. I agree that the adult monthly bus pass should change to $50. Parking rates should increase. Option B. I prefer the bus pass to stay at $80. Parking rates should remain the same. And now, here are just a couple sentences from a response to this task. This writer supports option A. They want bus fares to go down. First, Here's a version without transitions. As a student, paying less for bus passes would allow me to purchase more learning materials and to spend more money on recreation. This change could motivate more people to become green, and instead of driving cars, they may buy monthly passes to reduce the money they are spending on gas. Okay, so again, without a transition in the second sentence, the reader is left a little puzzled. The first sentence mentions the writer being a student, and the second talks about people in general. What exactly is the connection? Again, here's a hint about where you could add a transition to help readers understand the connection between the ideas. Now I'll give you a few seconds to think about what transition might fit here. So what would you have suggested? How about additionally? Since the second sentence seems to be another supporting idea, something like additionally or furthermore could fit well. I want to remind you that there are plenty of different transitional words and phrases you can choose from to connect ideas between sentences. We've covered just a few examples in this video. And you can also use transitions in a larger context, between paragraphs. We'll be examining this in more detail in the next video.